Have you ever wondered when exactly you stopped dreaming of freedom and started budgeting for survival instead? Not because someone told you to, not because you were weak, but because the pay was just good enough, because the coffee was hot enough, because the weekends were short enough to keep you hoping, but long enough to keep you silent. Imagine this. You wake up in a house you don't own, drive a car you lease, spend 8 hours working a job you secretly resent, only to use that paycheck to stay afloat. Not rise, not expand, not live, just stay afloat. You are praised for being responsible, for making your payments on time, for collecting your benefits, your incentives, your illusion of progress. But somewhere inside, a quiet voice asks, is this it? You used to want more, not more things, but more meaning. You used to imagine freedom as something wild, electric, almost dangerous. But now freedom sounds reckless. Now it sounds like risk. Now it sounds like something people without health insurance talk about. So you compromise elegantly, silently, invisibly. You dress the part. You perform the role. And the system rewards you with just enough comfort to dull your rebellion, just enough security to numb your imagination, just enough praise to confuse obedience with identity. You're not in chains. There's no prison cell, but you can't leave. Not without losing your paycheck, not without defaulting on your car, not without becoming the thing society fears the most, unstable. This isn't slavery, as you were taught to recognize it. There are no shackles, no auctions, no masters with whips. Just a contract, a salary, and a lifestyle you can't afford to question. And here is the paradox. You are free to speak, but not if it costs you your job. You are free to leave, but not if you have bills to pay. You are free to dream, but only on weekends and never too loud. So ask yourself, when did your passion become a liability? When did your creativity get priced out? When did your paycheck become your leash? You don't have to be physically bound to be enslaved. You only have to be afraid to walk away, afraid to lose the structure that gives you just enough dignity to stay silent. The most effective control is never brute force. It's the velvet cage, the one you decorate with Amazon packages and call success. The one you never escape, because escaping it would mean being seen as irresponsible, ungrateful, or, worst of all, poor. But what if the real poverty isn't out there? It's in here. What if it's the poverty of time, of soul, of meaning? What if the system doesn't need to beat you, only to pay you? And here is the real question, the one you're not supposed to ask. If you had all the money you needed, would you still be living this life? Would you still be clocking in? Would you still be performing a role that empties you? Or would you finally admit that you've been surviving, not living? Because if the answer is no, if your life would radically change without financial pressure, then maybe the paycheck ascends to the reward. Maybe it's the chain. Now let's go deeper. Because this quiet form of slavery, this modern velvet submission, didn't come out of nowhere. It was designed, and you were trained for it. Let's uncover why. This system, this comfortable slavery, didn't happen by accident. It wasn't built overnight. And it wasn't built with whips and chains. It was built with desire. It was built with fear. It was built with your own psychology, turned quietly against you. Aldous Huxley once warned that the future wouldn't be controlled through force, but through pleasure. Not with fear, but with entertainment. Not with prisons, but with distractions. People will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think, he wrote. And that is exactly what happened. You were trained to believe that freedom is dangerous, that security is more important. So you traded your independence for a direct deposit, your wildness for a promotion, your truth for a steady stream of dopamine delivered by likes, bonuses, and tiny digital victories. But here's the deeper truth. You didn't just sell your time. You sold your attention. You sold your inner compass. And the system was designed brilliantly to make you feel like it was your idea. From a young age, you are taught how to obey. Sit still, follow instructions, wait your turn, don't question, don't daydream. School didn't prepare you for life. It prepared you to be managed, to be monitored, to be evaluated by systems of approval that had nothing to do with who you truly are. By the time you enter the workforce, the conditioning is complete. You've learned to fear uncertainty more than you fear boredom. You've learned to silence your intuition in favor of policies, meetings, and KPIs. But where did this begin? Machiavelli, in The Prince, wrote that it is better for a ruler to be feared than loved, if he cannot be both. But the modern system evolved beyond fear. It learned that comfort is even more effective, because fear can lead to rebellion. But comfort? Comfort leads to sedation. If you want to control a population, you don't need an army. You just need debt. You just need consumerism. You just need people to tie their identity to things that can be taken away: status, salary, approval. When your sense of worth depends on external validation, you become controllable. You become predictable. You become silent. And this is the tragedy. Most people don't know they're enslaved because their prison is made of praise, because their cage is lined with compliments, because their leash is made of gold. Modern slavery doesn't need a master, because the system taught you to master yourself, to internalize its expectations so deeply that you punish yourself for wanting more. Have you ever noticed how people defend the very system that exploits them? They call it being realistic. They say things like, "That's just life. You should be grateful you have a job. It's not that bad." But what if realism has become a form of surrender? What if gratitude is being weaponized to keep you compliant? What if "not that bad" is exactly what they want, because you won't fight to escape something that's only mildly soul-crushing? Look deeper. The average person today is more stressed, more medicated, and more disconnected than ever. And yet we're told that we've never had it so good. Huxley called this the final revolution, a system where people would be conditioned to love their servitude. They would embrace the very machines that erase their will, and call it freedom. But how did we let this happen? Because you were promised rewards if you played the game. And to be fair, some of those rewards are real. You get access. You get approval. You get to post the highlight reel of your curated existence while slowly unraveling off-screen. But something deeper has been lost. Your time, your energy, your inner fire. You spend your best hours building someone else's dream. You silence your truth to maintain a false sense of security. You keep pushing, keep pleasing, keep performing, just to be told that you still haven't done enough. And the worst part? You think it's your fault. You think burnout is a personal failure. You think if you just hustled harder, woke up earlier, managed your time better, you'd finally feel free. But the game was never designed for you to win. It was designed to keep you almost satisfied, almost happy, almost free. Enough to keep going, never enough to break out. And now you're not just tired, you're numb. Because if you let yourself feel it, really feel it, the grief would be unbearable. The grief of a life half-lived, a fire never lit, a voice never used. But the numbness is starting to crack. The illusion is wearing thin, and deep inside, something ancient is stirring. A refusal, a question, a rage. What if you were never meant to live like this? What if this isn't failure, but a signal, a call to wake up? Because the true cost of this system isn't just your labor, it's your soul. And the next section will expose what that cost really looks like. Not in theory, but in your everyday life. Let's go deeper. Into the unseen consequences, the ones you feel, but can't always name. You may think you're functioning, that you're keeping it all together, But beneath the surface, something is eroding. Not violently, not dramatically, just silently. Like a roof that only leaks when it rains. You don't notice the damage until it's too late. And that's the genius of this system. Its consequences don't scream. They whisper. They manifest as slow psychological decay. You lose your ability to feel joy, not because your life is tragic, but because it's inert. A flat line of mediocrity dressed up as stability. You stop asking big questions, not because you found the answers, but because you no longer have the energy to ask. You scroll, you consume, you numb. You go to sleep exhausted, not from passion, but from endurance. And you wake up not rested, but reset, just enough to endure another day. But here's what no one tells you. This isn't burnout. It's soul rot. The slow disintegration of self beneath the weight of performance and survival. You start living for breaks, not breakthroughs. Vacations become escape plans. Weekends become sedation. And your dreams? They become relics of a younger you. A version of yourself you no longer recognize or believe in. And the worst part, you start to defend your prison. You laugh at people who want more. You scoff at those who chase freedom. You say, that's just not realistic, as if realism were a virtue and not a symptom of quiet despair. Because here's what the system fears most. Not your rebellion, but your awakening. As long as you think this life is the only option, you are safe. To them, not safe from suffering, but safe from questioning, safe from seeing, safe from remembering who you were before the leash felt like a limb. Cognitive biases begin to do the rest. The status quo bias tells you it's safer to keep things the way they are. The sunk cost fallacy tells you not to leave now, after everything you've invested. The normalcy bias tells you, everyone's doing it. It can't be that bad. And little by little, you betray yourself in small, manageable ways. You agree to one more thing you don't believe in. You silence one more truth to keep the peace. You postpone one more dream just until things settle down. But things never settle down, because the system was built to keep you moving, not forward, but in circles. You become the hamster in the wheel, the gear in the machine, the loyal, exhausted participant in a race you never chose. And here's the psychological cost no one measures. You stop trusting yourself. You doubt your desires. You second-guess your instincts. You forget that your discontent is not dysfunction. It's intelligence. It's the part of you that still remembers what aliveness feels like. But instead, we diagnose it. We medicate it. We shame it. We tell people who ache for more that they are selfish, that they are broken, that they are ungrateful. And this is the cruelty of modern culture. It gaslights your soul. It trains you to apologize for needing depth. It teaches you to silence the most sacred parts of yourself, just to maintain a lifestyle that's slowly killing you. And then there's the existential consequence. The question that lurks beneath every meeting, every commute, every paycheck. What if none of this matters? What if I'm wasting the one life I get on things that don't touch my spirit? What if I'm trading my presence, my potential, my purpose, for approval I don't even respect? You can feel it in your body, the tension in your shoulders, the fatigue behind your eyes, the quiet ache when you're alone and no one's watching. Not pain exactly, but absence. The absence of meaning, the absence of fire, the absence of you. Because the longer you play this game, the more you vanish inside it. Not in a dramatic collapse, but in a subtle fading. Until one day you realize you haven't felt fully alive in years. You haven't laughed from your gut. You haven't created without fear. You haven't said what you really feel. Not to your boss, not to your partner, not even to yourself. Because when survival becomes the goal, truth becomes a luxury, and freedom becomes a threat. So the question is no longer, am I free? but rather, what has my comfort cost me? Because behind every compromise, every rationalization, every unspoken truth is a person you were meant to be, a life you were meant to live. And that person is still in there, waiting, burning, whispering, break the cycle. And in the next section, we'll talk rebellion. We'll talk escape. We'll talk about the moment you stop surviving and start reclaiming your fire. Because the system only wins if you keep believing it's the only way. Picture this. You wake up one morning and don't check your phone. You don't rush. You don't perform. You just sit in silence. And for the first time in years, you listen to what your body is screaming, to what your intuition has been whispering, to the life that still exists beneath the noise. That moment, that quiet refusal, is the beginning of rebellion. Not with fire and pitchforks, but with clarity. Because once you see the cage, you can never unsee it. And here's the first radical truth. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are tired of being manipulated. You are exhausted from pretending. You are done serving a machine that feeds on your silence. The system depends on your confusion, on your guilt, on your fear of being too much or not enough. But what if none of that is real? What if it was designed like a stage to keep you docile, to keep you polite, to keep you performing instead of becoming? Rebellion begins the moment you reclaim authorship. You stop asking for permission. You start asking better questions. Not, how can I climb this ladder? But why am I even in this building? You stop romanticizing burnout. You stop chasing productivity as if it were salvation. You stop measuring your worth in deadlines, metrics, and fake smiles. And this isn't about quitting your job or fleeing into the forest. It's about a shift in consciousness, a refusal to see yourself as a cog, a decision to stop performing identity and start embodying truth. You don't need to burn your life down, but you do need to wake it up, to shake the dust off your voice, to ask yourself with terrifying honesty, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Because fear is the last gatekeeper, the final guardian of the lie. But once you walk through it, you realize something unimaginable. They can't own you if you no longer need what they offer, if you no longer crave their validation, if you no longer define yourself by status, stability, or superficial comfort, and you become ungovernable. And that's what they fear. Because the man or woman who sees clearly, who needs nothing, who walks into the unknown with eyes wide open, is more dangerous than any protest. They can't be bought. They can't be blackmailed with a pension. They can't be bribed with status. They walk away, not with bitterness, but with power. Not to escape, but to remember. To remember what it feels like to choose your own rhythm, to create without asking, to rest without guilt, to speak without shrinking. This is the new rebellion, a generation of souls refusing to trade their aliveness for a paycheck, a quiet uprising of people choosing truth over tolerance, depth over decor, presence over performance. But it's not easy. You will be misunderstood. You will be called reckless. You will be told you're throwing away your potential. But understand this, that potential they're so worried about was never yours. It was always theirs. Their idea of who you should be, their template, their metrics, their cage. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them talk. Let them cling to a dying script. Because you are writing something new. You are no longer surviving. You are sculpting your days with intention. You are reclaiming your energy from every meeting, relationship, and routine that drains your soul. You are choosing discomfort over numbness, uncertainty over quiet despair, truth over acceptance. And yes, the road will be lonely. Yes, you'll lose things, people, routines, identities. But what you gain is yourself, your clarity, your autonomy, your fire. And once that fire is lit, nothing can put it out. Not rejection, not ridicule, not fear. Because now you know, you were never meant to be domesticated. You were never meant to be a brand. You were never meant to be digestible. You were meant to be sovereign, feral, awake. And that, more than anything, is the real revolution. To become someone who needs nothing from the system, because they found everything within. In the final section, we go even deeper, to the core realization, the one that will not only shatter illusions, but redefine freedom itself. Get ready for the truth beneath the rebellion, the final key. Now imagine this. You're standing at the edge of everything you thought you were. Your job, your image, your responsibilities, your plans. And something inside you whispers, let it fall. Not because you hate it, but because it was never you. Because here, at the edge of the familiar, you begin to see what was always hidden. You were never chasing freedom. You were chasing the conditions in which you would finally allow yourself to feel free. A number in your bank account, a title on your email signature, a house big enough to justify your sacrifices, a body polished enough to be accepted. But real freedom? It's not something you acquire. It's something you remember. And that is the final, most terrifying truth. You are free the entire time. You just didn't believe it. Because the system needed you to forget. It needed you to believe that freedom was external, that it could be earned, bought, negotiated, that it came after the next deadline, the next raise, the next achievement. But that was the trap. The freedom they sold you was conditional, dependent on systems, gatekeepers, approval. And the more you chased it, the further it slipped away. Because real freedom is internal. It's radical self-trust. It's the courage to follow your soul into the unknown, without a map, without applause, without guarantees. It's waking up and knowing that nothing out there, not the job, not the paycheck, not the praise, has the authority to define your worth. That is what makes you untouchable. Not wealth, not power, but sovereignty. The refusal to betray yourself, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely, even when it costs you everything false, to reclaim everything real. This is the paradox they never wanted you to discover. The system can only enslave the version of you that needs it. The persona, the performer, the one who chases approval. But your essence, the real you, was never for sale. It was just buried beneath layers of expectation and exhaustion. Now it's rising. Now it's remembering. Because freedom isn't walking away. It's knowing you can. It's the stillness that says, I am enough. As I am, even here, even now. It's turning your attention inward to the parts of you that were silenced, belittled, ignored, and listening. Not to strategize, not to monetize, but to reconnect, to reclaim the simple miracle of your own existence. No performance, no audience, just presence. That's where freedom begins, not in escape, but in truth. Not in rebellion, but in return, a return to what is real, what is quiet, what is yours. And once you taste that, no salary can seduce you, no institution can own you, no title can tame you, because you no longer need the leash. You no longer need the script. You no longer need the system to tell you who you are. You remember, and in that remembering, you become dangerous. Not because you want to burn it all down, but because you've stopped worshiping what was never sacred. You've stopped obeying out of fear. You've stopped apologizing for your aliveness. And now, you walk differently. You speak differently. You live like someone who knows the truth. Modern slavery isn't chains. It's comfort without purpose, stability without soul, silence without choice. But the one who no longer needs comfort to feel safe, the one who can sit in the discomfort of truth and still choose integrity. That one is free. So here's the question that remains. Will you keep surviving the script or start writing your own? Because the world doesn't need more compliant workers. It needs awakened humans, unleashed, unchained, unapologetically alive. And you are never born to be tamed. You were born to remember.